My scripture reading this morning is taken from Matthew, the 8th chapter, 18th through the 22nd verse. Now, when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave commandment to depart unto the other side. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whatsoever thou shalt goeth. And Jesus said unto him, The foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. And another of his disciples said unto him, Lord, suffer me to first go and bury my father. But Jesus said unto him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their dead. And so is the scripture. Matthew's 8th chapter, the 18th through the 22nd verse. Now, what we have to understand is this. First and foremost, when the scripture says that Jesus gave a commandment to depart from the other side, what does this mean? Depart to the other side. There is a scripture wherein Jesus was in a boat preaching from the shores, and him and his disciples crossed over the rivers of water. When scripture speaks about departing over to the other side, it means going from the physical into the spiritual. Departing from the physical way of thinking into or over to the spiritual side of living, of knowing the very truth of what you are. There's a story about the fisherman that was out at the sea fishing, and they was disappointed because they wasn't catching anything in their nets. And they were saying to Jesus, we are not catching anything. And Jesus said, well, pull up your nets and cast them over to the other side. Pull up your nets from this side where you're catching nothing over to the other side. And there their nets were filled. Crossing over or casting over to the other side means that we go from this materialistic way of thinking and living to the spiritual way of living and knowing that whatever it is that you desire, it's already there for you by going within and acknowledging, realizing, and bringing forth that truth that is within you. Scripture states that God said that even before you ask, I have already answered, knowing that he knows our very thoughts, our very needs. So I said to you this morning, crossing over, when you're confronted with situations and conditions that seems to be beyond your control, cross over to that other side within you. Cross over to that spiritual side. Cross over to that consciousness of oneness, knowing that you are forever in the abundance of God. And as you cross over to the other side, you must also know and understand that whatever or all that God is, you are. I've said it so many times, and I will continue to say it. We must come to that point of knowing that we can never be separated from our good. And our good is that spirit, the consciousness, the power, the life of God within us. Now, we can turn away in our mind, in our ego. We can turn away from that light or for that consciousness or from that knowingness that we truly are and experience all of the difficulties of the world. You cannot blame no one but yourself. And I know I've worked with many people who have blamed God for everything that has befallen them. Just this morning, I was answering a text message that I had gotten from one of my old students, go back some near 40 years ago. Very intelligent person, have studied a lot of spiritual teachings and everything. But the fact of the matter is, we can study it here. We can memorize it here. But if we don't live it from our hearts, the very depths of our being, it's all for naught. We must practice what we preach, practice what we teach, practice what we believe. Just can't say I got it up here and expect it to work for you. And so, as Jesus said, cross over to the other side. There you will find the abundance. There you will find the prosperity. There you will find the fulfillment of every need. And I know and understand that we get caught up in the things of the world, and we have a tendency to look at what other people are going through, what they are experiencing, and we take into our consciousness, that this could happen to me. That could be me going through that. And oh, I'm experiencing some difficulties in my life. And we want to blame everybody and everything but ourselves because we fail to realize that we truly are the ones that have created the conditions that have befallen us. And when we create those conditions that has befallen us, understand this. From the very depths of your being, and I'm going to try to say it as simple as I can. Whatever you claim, and this goes back to the source of I am. Because when we claim something, we always use unconsciously the power of I am. Whatever you claim by using the power of I am is what you're going to demonstrate and manifest in your life. And when you bring forth those things that you have manifested and the things that you are demonstrating in your life, and if they are not conducive, if they are not profitable to you, God can't take them away. Because you are continuously affirming, this is what I am. I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. I'm sick. I'm all of these negative and unwanted conditions. And you're constantly complaining. I have. I used to tell a story, which was a true story many years ago. that there was a lady that I worked with, and I would try my best to stay in contact with her as often as I could. And she suffered real badly with arthritis, and even my mother. And I would call and I would ask, "Oh, how you doing today?" And the first time she said it to me, she said, "Oh, me and Arthur doing the very best that we can do." Well, who is Arthur? I mean, your neighbor, your boyfriend, your husband, who is Arthur? So I asked her, who is Arthur? And she said, it's arthritis. Claiming me and Arthur, we're doing all right. We're doing the very best that we can. And here was something that she didn't want to be a part of her life. But whenever she spoke about the condition, she was claiming. So whatever you claim is always going to be there with you. And no one or no thing is going to be able to take it away from you, because you know a lot of people will fight. They will fight you if you try to tell them that they are not sick, that they don't have to be carrying this burden that they're carrying. They'll fight you. Something wrong with you. I got it. I feel it. Yeah, well, it's yours because you've claimed it. So who you gonna blame? You can't blame God because God didn't put it on you. God is not a God of sickness. God is not a God of lack and limitation. And as that old saying goes, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters? Because you sure can't call God. You're not willing to let go and to release. You're holding on. And then a lot of people do it for sympathy. They do it for sympathy. They want some people to feel sorry for them and all of this and other kind of stuff. Create things to get sympathy. Why don't you create something to get love? Why don't you be the very truth and the very essence of what you are? And so, as Jesus was saying to his disciples, and I want you to understand this, Jesus said unto his disciples, when one of the disciples said, Lord, wait a minute, I'm going to go with you, but first let me go and bury my father. And Jesus said, follow me. Let the dead bury their dead. And what he was saying is this: when the life has gone from the physical body, the body has no value. The most important thing is the life that is still in the body. And Jesus was saying, let the dead bury the dead. Let those that are not spiritually awake bury the body of those that have made their transition. Doesn't mean that you don't attend the funeral services or what have you. But in going so and doing so, you must know and understand that your first and most priority is to your own spiritual growth and unfoldment. The deceased is no longer in the body. The body no longer, has life. It's gone on. And it's time for us to move on. We got to keep on getting up. Now, I know that there's a grieving process. I understand that. but you must be over and done with your grieving as quickly as possible. There's two things that I want to say to you about the grieving process. First and foremost, the longer you grieve for a departed one, that soul or that consciousness can still experience the energies and the vibrations of that you're releasing. And a lot of times, your grieving can keep those souls earthbound. You can keep them from moving on to the higher planes of consciousness because of the love that they have for you and the desire for them not to see you suffering and experiencing the sense of loss that you're going through. They remain earthbound and they try to do all that they can from the physical, from the spiritual side of life to comfort you. But if you're not open and receptive to those higher energies, then you will not feel their presence, you will not feel their love, and you will continue on in this state of grieving. I want to share a story with you. I have many, but I'm just going to share this particular one. I had a cousin many, many years ago, a young man that I really took a liking to. And I named him Little Dribbles because he had a basketball shirt on it with a basketball. I named him Little Dribbles, one who dribbles a basketball. Little Dribbles took sick. And his sickness started to consume him. And on this particular day, Little Dribbles had, he had gone to school, he had gone to college. He had fought this sickness for so many years. And after he had graduated from college, the sickness just all of a sudden came down on him. And I was at the hospital with his mother, other family members. And he was in a state, an unconscious state. His mother was there holding his hand. And her only child, first child, only child. It's a very difficult thing for a parent to see their only child on their deathbed. But she summoned up the courage as she was holding his hand. And she said to him, "It's all right. Go on and be with the Lord." Those were her words, a mother to her son that was on his deathbed. She didn't ask God to save her son. She didn't say, "God, don't let my son die." She said to her son, "It's all right. Go on and be with the Lord." And within an hour's time, he was gone. She had freed him, but he had stayed. He didn't want to leave his mother until she said to him, "It's all right. Go on." She was saying, "I'm going to be all right. You can go on and be with the Lord." Powerful state. And it touched me because Little Dribble had become a very close friend of mine. I mean, he was like one of my children. Watched him grow up. And so I learned from that moment. When you're at the bedside of someone getting ready to make their transition, don't hold on to them. Let them go. Let them go on and be, as they say, with the Lord. And so many a times in my past, in my ministry, I've had to sit by the bedside of those that was getting ready to make their transition and said to them, it's all right. Go on. Go into the light. So when Jesus said to the disciple, let the dead bury the dead, he was saying to those, or to the disciple, he who is not a spiritually awake, let them go and bury the body that no longer has life. This is what Jesus was saying. Let the dead bury the dead, but you follow me. As long as there's life within your body, turn within and follow that Christ consciousness that is within you, that is always leading you and guiding you onward and upward to higher states of consciousness. You see, once we've left the body, we shouldn't want to hang around. We should want to move on in that light to higher states of consciousness. Because the more we hang around earthbound, the more we are going to experience a lot of unpleasantness. And the unpleasantness and the torture of the soul, because you have desire. But without a physical body, you cannot fulfill those desires. That's torture. It's symbolic of what it is in a state of hell. I thirst, give me water. But there's no way for me to drink it. I have not the hands or the arms or the hands to hold it. So as we continue upon this path of spiritual growth and unfoldment, know that our number one priority is to know and to recognize and to bring forth that God consciousness within us. If we are going to follow the path of Jesus, then we have to enter in to that kingdom, into that oneness, and into that consciousness. And understand this: Jesus, the man, was blessed with the Christ consciousness. You know, it said that Jesus was the Son of God. But the Son of God truly was and is the Christ consciousness that was in the man Jesus. And the Christ consciousness that was in the man Jesus is also the Christ consciousness within you and I. What God gave to one, God gave to the many, or to the all. And you've heard so many times, if not, you hear it this time, many are called, but only a few are chosen. And it's not that God looked down and specifically picked a special person or a special group of people. The chosen ones are the ones that are following or heeding the calling within themselves. They become the chosen ones. The chosen ones are not handpicked. It's a decision and a commitment that the individual make to follow that inner calling. And then they become, as it is said, the children. We are all children of God, but we all don't realize the truth of what we are. So cross over to the other side. Just like a coin. Now, you've heard there's two sides to every story. What side do you want to be on? It's like a fence running down through a piece of property. There's one side here and the other side there. It doesn't do you good to straddle the fence. You have to decide on which side do you want to be on. So you want to cast your nets on the side that is truly going to bless you with prosperity, with abundance, that is going to enrich your spiritual way of thinking. And I will say from experience, for many days, I was casting my net on the wrong side of the boat, always coming up empty. And if you're a fisherman and you're casting your net on the wrong side of the boat and you're coming up empty, then you have no food to take home. How are you going to feed your family? But that doesn't necessarily mean how you're going to feed your family when your nets come up empty. How are you going to feed yourself first and foremost? If you catch nothing, then you have nothing to eat. But if you cast your net, if you change your mind, your way of thinking, and cast it over to the right side, you will be truly and abundantly blessed. Jesus said, follow me. It is the Christ that is speaking in and through you and me that is saying, follow me. Follow the path that I have prepared before you. Follow the light of I am. Come forth from the darkness, out of the shadows, into the light. And know that when you surrender, the worldly mind and the ego to the truth of what you are, that is the I am within you, then the doors of the kingdom will always be open for you. God bless. Namaste.